One last thing that I'd like to take a look at before we move on is figuring out a way to maybe clean up some of these assertions. Now, I'm actually not super unhappy with how this looks. It is a lot of assertions, admittedly, and you have to kind of read through each one, and it's kind of rough in that sense, but it's not too bad. But it would be kind of cool if we could just make an assertion to say that the published concerts list should be just concert A and just concert C. And the unpublished concerts list should just be unpublished A and unpublished C. For example, imagine that we could do something like response data published concerts, and then instead of saying assert contains or assert not contains, what if we could say assert equals and then pass through the array that we think it should be? In this case, it should be published concert A and published concert C. And then similarly, we want to assert that unpublished concerts is going to be equal to unpublished concert A and unpublished concert C. Now, of course, this is not going to work because we don't have an assert equals test helper built into our collection yet. But let's look at how we might be able to do that. So if we head up to the top here where we're defining our collection assertion macros, I want to add one more, which is this assert equals that we're talking about. And I'll show you the way that I think this could work. Let's say collection macro assert equals and then define it. So this is going to take items, right? We want to compare it to some items. And then what we want to do is we want to verify that every item in this list is equal to the item in the same position in the list that we're starting with. So a cool collection helper that you can use to sort of pair up two items in a collection to make them easy to compare is the zip helper. Think of zip like a zipper. You have two items on either side and you're pairing them up together. So imagine we had a collection that looked like A, B, C, and then another one that looked like 1, 2, 3. If we were to zip these two collections together, you'd end up with a result that looked like A, 1, because we zipped together 1 into A, and then B2 and C3. So you can see how by taking our existing collection that we're starting with and zipping it with the ones coming in, we sort of have each item matched up with its pair so we can kind of compare them. So check this out. If we do something like this, zip this with the items that come through, then for each of those, we can get a function that has sort of the pair that we want to compare. And then we can get each item out of that. So we can get A, say, and B could be equal to the pair. This will let us sort of extract the two. So this will be the item in that position in this collection. And this will be the item in that position in this collection. And now that we have those two items, we can say this, assert true, A is B. Because these are both going to be eloquent models since we're working with an eloquent collection. So I think we got this right. Let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. And we get an error, there is no assert true method, and that's correct. We made that mistake here. This should actually be using the assert class from PHP unit. So let's head back down here and run this again, see what we get now. And we're green, amazing. So if we headed over to the concerts controller, for example, and we got rid of this filter call on the first one, and why don't we go ahead and comment out all these individual assertions. Let's just run it and make sure that it fails now where we want it to fail. And it does. Argument 1 passed to is must be an instance of model, but null given. So basically, the two collections were not the same size. So that's something that we could protect against in our assert equals thing if we wanted to too. We could get a better message there if we wanted. So why don't we add that assertion? So in assert equals, why don't we first do assert equals count this is the same as count items. I'm using the count function here because we're passing through an array here, not necessarily a collection. So let's go ahead and run this now, and we should hopefully get a better error. Okay, so now we get an error failed asserting that 2 matches expected 4. So it wasn't of the correct size. So that would help us diagnose that problem. So now if we bring that back and we run this test again, we're back to green, and we're able to eliminate all of these kind of one-off assertions with two assertions that are a little bit easier to parse. So we want to say that published concerts is equal to just concert A and concert C of the published variety, and that unpublished concerts is equal to concert A and concert C of the unpublished variety. One last thing that we might want to do here, like we mentioned at the beginning, is using our concert factory to simplify this a little bit. So let's head over to the concert factory class, and we'll add a new static function called create unpublished. And this will again take overrides like we've been doing all along here. And it's going to be really simple. We're just going to want to take this implementation basically, copy this, paste it in here, but return it. And all we're going to do is pass through all of the overrides. So before we do anything else, let's just run this test, make sure that it's still passing, and it is. And now let's replace all this stuff with just a call to concert factory, create unpublished. And with any luck, this will still work. And it does. And our test reads to be a little bit more consistent.